Welcome to Tech Leaders Today with your host, Cassie Crossley. All comments, views, and opinions expressed on this show are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers. Now here's Cassie Crossley.
Welcome to Tech Leaders Today. I'm here with Patty Azzarello, who is an executive, best-selling author, speaker, and CEO/business advisor with more than 25 years of experience working in high tech and business. 10 years ago, she founded the Azzarello Group, which works with CEO and leadership teams to help their business and people get better at what they do. She is the author of the best-selling book, Rise, 3 Practical Steps to Advancing Your Career, Standing Out as a Leader, and Liking Your Life, which I must say has a 5-star rating on Amazon, so please go check it out. And her latest book, Move, How Decisive Leaders Execute Strategy Despite Obstacles, Setbacks, and Stalls, is being released on February 28th. Welcome, Patty.
Thanks, Cassie. It's great to be here.
I'm very excited to have you here because I have already been very familiar with your background. I had a team member who introduced me to your work many years back. I have been reading through your new book, Move, and I am just amazed at the information that any technology leader could use, whether or not they're working on a transformation, because it gets to the heart of why programs, transformations, and just in general, working in a business atmosphere, how we can work better to successfully deliver, whether it's a $100,000 project or multi-million-dollar projects. And people spend millions upon millions each year on these transformations. So why did you write the book Move?
I wrote Move to help all managers. A manager at any level can benefit from what I put in Move to help their teams execute better. I hear so many organizations and managers say, yeah, we're not very good at execution around here, or, my organization's not that good at execution. And they talk about it as though there's nothing that can be done about it, that there are just challenges that are chronic, that exist in the environment, that make execution difficult, and they just kind of resign themselves and say, yeah, we're not very good at execution around here. And so I wanted to write a book that was like the guidebook that said, if you've got a strategy to execute, if you've got a transformation to lead, a manager at any level can use the tools and the ideas I outline in Move, and you actually can get your team executing decisively. It's not impossible to overcome those chronic obstacles.
Tell me about what Move stands for. You have the book broken into several different sections.
So the book is called Move as a description of my Move model for transformation, and all of the letters in Move stand for something. M is for the middle. The concept of the middle is very important because we've all experienced the beginning of a transformation where everybody's really excited and there's a lot of energy and there's just so much importance, and you have very inspiring end goals defined that might be a year or 2 out. But then the middle happens, and the middle is where transformations lose momentum and they stall, and people start asking, are we still doing this? And there are just so many hazards. And so the M part of the Move model is just about how to deal with the hazards of the middle. O is for organization. And there is simply no effective antidote for the wrong team. And I talk about in the O section all the things you need to consider to make sure that you really have a team that is fit for the purpose of executing your strategy or transition. V is for Valor, because this leadership stuff is hard. And there are many times where all of us as leaders feel scared, feel challenged, feel insecure about what we need to do and how to lead it, especially when people during the middle are getting skeptical and they're getting bored and they're getting distracted. It takes a lot of valor as a leader. And I think it's just really important to share that everyone is scared at one point or another, no matter what you're trying to do in your business, in your work. and that's okay. But you need the valor to keep going. And then finally, E is for everyone. I see a lot of organizations make the mistake of thinking that they can do a transformation from the top. You can lead a transformation from the top, but you cannot execute a transformation from the top. You need to involve and engage everyone from the beginning, because if they don't move, you don't move. And so the everyone section is about many different ways to think about communicating in conversations and motivating to make sure that you have your whole organization ready to decisively move forward.
In the intro part, you also had some insightful discussion about innovation. You talk about many things, but one thing that grabbed me is a board mandate that says we must innovate. That is something I see everywhere, both in R&D or in IT. So can you talk about how we can change the language so it's not so generic?
Innovation is one of those things, it's one of those words that gets thrown around a lot. To tell people just start innovating doesn't really give them a clear handle on what exactly they should do. And it's time that proves whether or not the thing you built is actually innovative or not. So I'm a big believer in giving people room to think and to be creative. And the things you do, the verbs that you do are you encourage people to think. You encourage people to lead. You encourage people to take risks. You encourage people to learn about new things. And you encourage people to share their ideas and put their ideas forward. Innovation is another one of these things that really plays very well into this E part of the model, where if you create an environment where everyone has the expectation and has the ability and the space to think and work creatively and contribute ideas without being afraid, you're going to get a lot more of that innovation result.
I identified quite a bit with the middle section because as someone with a project management background, the middle makes sense where you talk about planning, but we often see transformational leaders or those put in the role of transformation. They may not have that background. So it seems like there's two different groups that fall on the let's analyze every single detail and make it a task and really not make it a transformation. And then you have the theoretical, let's transform, but it's hard to get down to the detail layer. So talk about that middle part. How do you really get the right balance?
Let me just say a little bit more about the middle in general first, and then I will very specifically answer that question. So the issue with the middle is that people are skeptical. And if you are looking to everyone and you ask them what they think during the middle, they tend to be very skeptical because you go to the big kickoff meeting where the executives are all excited about the transformation and they talk about all of the great things that are going to happen. Our general reaction to that as humans who have worked at companies is to say, I don't need to worry about this because that'll never happen because we never actually do these things. There are so many strategic initiatives that get kicked off and everybody just rolls their eyes because somewhere shortly into the middle, they just lose all of their momentum and the right things don't happen. And then everybody says, I guess we're not still doing this. And everybody just goes back to work. And so as you were saying, what is the right granularity? What is the right amount of detail to put in the middle so that everyone can see where you're going and they can lose their skepticism and start to believe, oh, we're actually doing this because I see all these checkpoints and measures throughout the middle, but it's not so much detail that you lose the forest for the trees. And so what I talk about in Move as a way to plot this course through the middle is to use this concept of a control point. And a control point is a measure, but it's like a super measure. It's just not a measure of a one-dimensional thing. One of the examples that I give in the book is when I was leading the development of a technology product. This technology product in its current form was miserable to install and get started with. It was truly embarrassing and horrible. The way we packaged it, the way we sent it to you, the way we had instructions to install it, the way you needed to install it, the way you got started with it, all of it was frankly just terrible. At the beginning of my transformation, I said, we need to make our product easier to use and easier to get started with. And at the end, we're going to have a lot more happy customers, and we're going to be able to sell and support the product easier because we will have fixed this. But then I had to define the middle. I had to define, well, exactly what are we going to do? And I didn't want to go detail by detail, organization by organization. And so I created a control point measure that halfway through our transformation cycle, my team needed to achieve the outcome of making our product fun in 15 minutes. And when I first announced this, everybody thought I had lost my mind because we were starting from a product that was fun never, let alone in a short period of time. If you were lucky, you could maybe get it working in 3 weeks. But 15 minutes was ridiculous, and the idea of fun was completely impossible. But I stuck with that, and it worked very well as a control point because it was not one-dimensional. It meant that the engineers had to work with the people doing the installation process. Both groups had to work with the people doing documentation, the people who were doing the packaging, the people who were doing the support planning. All of them needed to come together to achieve this control point. And that's really a good thing about picking a control point instead of a detailed measure, because not only does it solve for an important outcome, it also creates the wonderful thing that suddenly people are working together cross-functionally because they need to meet their own objectives. They can't just optimize solely for their function, for install, for product, for marketing, for technical documentation. Everybody had to work together. And do you know, we did it. We completely transformed how we put our product into the market, and our customers ended up having a very pleasant experience within the first 15 to 30 minutes of their experience, instead of it taking weeks of them being angry. So that's a great example of what I mean by a control point. And if you pick the right control points and you stage them out throughout the middle, the other wonderful thing that happens is everybody can see where you're going. Everybody can see and feel that you're making progress on this transformation. Because one of the biggest dangers of the middle is simply that it's a long time. And sometimes it takes a long time for people to be able to perceive the progress. So you use these control points as light posts or signposts or mile markers along the middle, and then everybody can see and feel and recognize that you're getting somewhere.
While I was reading that section, it took me time to really understand your approach, because I was trained as a Six Sigma Black Belt for IT business. It was a new concept of not just taking the measurements for granted. So I encourage everybody to read that, because I did look at it with a new lens after I finished reading that. And I did examine my own group's control points of what we're really trying to achieve. And now I have more that I need to do, because I still didn't get to where I wanted to. It's an interesting concept. The O for organization was another area that I was really enraptured with what was being said, because I feel that in transformation programs, you might have some people who are hand-picked, but everybody else is, okay, this person's available, here you have this person, and you just get a hodgepodge of people for a transformation that already had a day job and didn't have more time for this. And there's even just so many concepts in that section that I think everybody should read. But if you can put it into just a few points, if you really want to succeed in transformation for organizations, somebody needs to do what? What do you feel is their main areas that they need to work on?
So the way I like to think about this, and as I said in the intro, there is no effective antidote for the wrong team. And I think a lot of times as managers, we think our job is to make do with the team we have instead of to build the team we need. And particularly, as you state in a transformation, you just get assigned a group of random people who may or may not be interested, motivated, available, capable, but somehow this is your transformation team. And so what I encourage every manager, whether it's just for your team, for a large organization, or for a cross-functional matrix transformation project team, is to not start with the people that you have in terms of your thinking about the team, but to start with a blank sheet. And I describe in Move a concept that I have used for years called the ideal blank sheet org chart. And you can give yourself as a manager and your transformation a real gift if you take the time to do this step and just sit back and don't think initially about anyone who's involved, but just draw an ideal org chart and draw that ideal org chart based on the outcomes and the results that you need to drive. And when you have a picture of an org chart that is very based on outcomes and results, suddenly the clouds part and you figure out what you need and what you need to do. And you'll find that there are some people who obviously fit in one of the boxes, in some of the boxes that you've defined. And you'll also find that you might have some empty boxes and you might have some extra people. And that's where it gets challenging. But I think it's important that we really seriously assess what that necessary organization is. And if some of those empty boxes are really critical, then you have an opportunity to go to your sponsors and say, you know what, we're not fooling around here. And if you want to achieve these outcomes, we are missing expertise in this area. And here's my recommendation to fill these boxes and go forward with the right team. And by the way, with the right sponsorship. That's another thing that I talk about in Move, particularly if you're leading a cross-functional transformation effort, is to make sure that you are not the only one who cares and that you have sponsors on the hook to provide that support and that backstop for when things are not going perfectly.
And if you do have the right people in place, your next section, Valor, when you have the V for Valor, you have, in some cases, what I call the Superman syndrome, which I think most people are aware what happens. But you really need the entire team to work together because, as you mentioned, to do these transformations, it's so hard. How do you find the courage and the stamina that everyone is involved in that Valor equation, that it's not just one or two people? Because it can't be just one or two people.
Yeah, and again, this gets to the integration of this model where you need everyone. So you're talking about making sure that the Valor idea reaches enough of everyone in the organization so that enough people are dealing with their fear of doing something different to move the transformation forward. And so there are a couple things. One is, in terms of your own Valor, make sure you have support. Make sure you have sponsorship. Make sure you have mentors. Make sure you have somewhere to go when things get hard and people who are supporting you when too many people are saying, well, I don't think this is the right thing to do, or this is taking too long, or we're investing too much, or we've made the wrong decisions. There's all kinds of flack that comes up during the middle. And as a leader, you need to learn to deflect that and to keep going and to just keep moving forward. And you're never going to get anyone on board. You're never going to get every single person on board. But one of the things I think is really important, and I'm a big believer in a transformation, is looking for bright spots, looking for leaders in unexpected places. A lot of times it's individual contributors who just accept the challenge and they start doing the new work and they start modeling the behavior that you want. Really support those people, shine a spotlight on those people, and make sure that you are protecting that new work with your life. And I think that is one of the biggest mistakes that I see, is that leaders will say the transformation is the priority. They'll have people in their organization exhibiting great valor in terms of resisting pressure to go back to the old way, resisting pressure to chase after shiny objects. And then something will come in, a sales guy will come in and say, we need this immediately. Some pressure will come in from somewhere. And instead of the leader protecting that new work, the leader will cave in and say, yeah, I guess you should take care of that. And as soon as the leader does that, everyone's valor is damaged. As a leader, when you have people, when you have bright spots and they are doing the transformation and they are doing the new work, protect them with your life. And when those distractions come in, you find another way to deal with it. Because every time you make that decision to let somebody go back to the old way or let somebody chase something, you are damaging your transformation. You are damaging the valor. You need to keep moving forward.
The last section was on everyone, and I thought that you covered a lot of everyone throughout the book. It was very consistent on talking about people, because transformation is not, as I mentioned earlier, a set of tasks. It has to be really bringing everything together. So when you're looking at that E for everyone, one of the points that you mentioned was about silos. Every company, it doesn't matter if there's 3 people, there's probably a silo.
Absolutely.
Can you talk more about that and how you can really limit as much as possible that on a transformation? Because most transformations that I work in have 50 to 200 people working on them.
This idea of silos is so rampant. And as you said, I've been in startup companies where someone will say, well, I need to talk to marketing about that. And I'm thinking, marketing is one person. You mean you need to talk to Harry? And we build these silos just out of habit, I think, sometimes. And so one of the big ideas in the everyone section is about changing how we think about communicating in 2 important ways. The first important way is to think about, instead of top-down broadcast type of communications, creating conversations and measuring the effectiveness of your communication, not by saying, how many times did I communicate? How well did I communicate? But instead measuring, is everybody else talking about it amongst themselves? That's the control point for communication. It's not what you've communicated as a leader, but it's that others are having conversations. And so I give lots of ideas in the book for how to create conversations and how to do it cross-functionally. That's the most powerful way to break down silos, is to create a mechanism whereby there are natural conversations that are happening across silos. One of the ways you do this is picking good control points, as we talked about earlier, that require people to work together. But another story I share in Move that was such an eye-opener and was so fascinating for me is a story about an entrepreneurial class at my university. And they had so thoroughly solved the problem of silos and communicating by using what was a social media type of communication between silos. And the marvelous thing about this, and the big aha for me about this, is that every organization shared information, and everyone in every organization, every single person, consumed information from all of the other groups. And the big aha for me was they did this because they were being graded on it, because it was a university class, and part of their grade was on sharing information and on consuming information. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks that, wow, what business on the planet would not benefit from this type of communication across silos, and why don't we do it? We don't do it because we don't grade people on it. And so I am a big advocate in a transformation for anyone that owns a particular element of that transformation to be responsible for doing an internal blog about their part of that transformation, and that everyone else in the transformation has an opportunity to read those updates and communicate and share comments and share discussions. It is so much more effective than email, and all the conversations are automatically archived, and it's just very, very easy to share information if you have people in charge of the main elements of a transformation continually updating on a central communication platform that everyone can connect with.
I hope everyone realizes that it doesn't matter if you're a technology leader or in the business side or whatever area you're in, everything that you're talking about is valid for them. Do you have any last points that you want to tell, especially technology leaders, about why they would need to read this book? And I definitely agree that they should read every single word.
Well, thank you for that. Just in closing, I'll say every manager should read this book because it will really help you. I wrote a book that would provide a really strong guide with lots of big insights, but really practical ideas, practical to the point of try saying this when that happens. I like my work to be very, very consumable and very usable by people. And I've shared the lessons I've learned in my own career, having done many turnarounds and many transformations. And I put everything I learned into this MOVE model, and it really works. And I wrote it to be helpful for any manager in any type of organization.
I definitely think it is helpful for any manager or anybody working on a transformation, because this is not just for the leaders, but for the group as a whole. It would be very useful. What is the best way for people to find out about the book? It's going to be released on February 28th, and also how to get in contact with you.
You can find me on my website at pattyazzarello.com. And from there, you'll be able to find links to the book as well as links to all of my other social media presence online as well. But pattyazzarello.com is a good start.
I will include your information in the show notes so anybody can use their podcast application or on the web. And I really encourage everyone to go to Amazon and purchase this, pre-order it, get it in your hands and start reading it. Even if you're not working on a transformation at the moment, if you have one coming up, even if you have projects, programs, whatever, if it's not titled transformation, please pick up this book. It is going to be worth your time. I guarantee it. Thank you so much for joining me today, Patty.
Thanks, Cassie. It was a pleasure.
I want to thank you so much for listening today. If you love this podcast, please do share it with your friends and colleagues. And please leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher, because it makes a difference for circulation. For the show notes and other great info, enter your email into the mailing list at techleaderstoday.com. Thank you.